When people think about America, they picture the obvious: burgers, Hollywood, baseball, and way too many reality TV shows. But here's the thing: the US is full of strange quirks and hidden facts that most people, even Americans themselves, don't actually know. We're talking about laws that sound made up, traditions that seem bizarre to outsiders, and history that's stranger than fiction. Like, did you know there's a town where it's illegal to tie your giraffe to a telephone pole? Or that America has more museums than Starbucks and McDonald's combined? Yeah, like this country isn't just big, it's weird. And that's what we're diving into today. 10 facts about America you might not know. Some are funny, some are shocking, and some will make you wonder how this country even functions. But that's the charm. America isn't just one story, it's millions of little oddities stitched together. By the end of this list, you'll probably have at least one new fact to impress your friends with, or at the very least, something to drop into a conversation when things get awkward. Hey, did you know the US doesn't have an official language? So buckle up because we're about to tour the stranger, lesser known side of the United States. And our first fact? It's about how the US is still technically incomplete. Number 10, the US is technically still at war. Here's something most people don't realize: the United States has never technically been at peace since World War II. Sounds dramatic, right? But it's true. America has been in some kind of military conflict, operation, or authorized mission for decades. Think about it. The Korean War never officially ended. It just stopped with an armistice, meaning technically the US and North Korea are still at war. Add in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, plus smaller conflicts all over the globe, and you start to see the pattern. America is almost always fighting something somewhere. What's wild is how normalized it feels. For a lot of Americans, being at war is background noise. It doesn't dominate daily life unless you have family in the military. But globally, it gives the US a reputation as a country that's always locked and loaded, and the numbers back it up. The US spends more on its military than the next several countries combined. That's not defense. That's world police level spending. To put it in perspective, while some countries invest in free healthcare or cheap education, America invests in making sure it can fight 10 wars at once, just in case. So yeah, when people talk about the land of the free, it's worth remembering that freedom comes with a massive defense budget and a calendar full of military commitments. But that's just the global stage. Our next fact is a lot closer to home, and it's about the language Americans speak, or technically don't. Of its 9, the US has no official language. You'd think a country as big and powerful as the United States would have an official language, right? Wrong. There isn't one. Not federally, anyway. English is the dominant language, sure, but it's never been written into law as the official tongue of America. Why? Well, part of it comes down to history. The Founding Fathers never made it official because the US was always a mix of cultures and languages. Back in the 18th century, German, Dutch, and French were spoken in certain regions just as much as English. Making one language official might have been too messy, so they just didn't bother. Of course, English dominates today. Over 75% of Americans speak it as their first language, but Spanish comes in strong at second place, and in some states, like New Mexico, Texas, and California, bilingual culture isn't just normal, it's expected. There are also hundreds of indigenous languages plus immigrant communities that keep their mother tongues alive. Here's the kicker: some states do declare English as their official language, but federally? Nothing. That means technically, America has no official language at all, which is wild considering how heated debates about language can get. So the next time someone says, "Speak English, you're in America," you can clap back with, "Actually, the US doesn't have an official language." Watch their brains short circuit. Speaking of things America doesn't officially have, our next fact will surprise you too. It's about the way this country celebrates itself every year and why fireworks aren't even the weirdest part. Yate. Americans spend over $1 billion on fireworks every year. Every 4th of July, the skies over America light up like the country is under alien attack. Fireworks are loud, colorful, and honestly a little dangerous, but they're a national obsession. Here's the crazy part: Americans spend over $1 billion every single year on fireworks. Yep, $1 billion. For things that literally explode and vanish in seconds. What's funnier is that fireworks aren't even legal everywhere. In some states, you can only buy sparklers and tiny fountains. In others, it's a free-for-all: giant rockets, mortars, the works. And Americans love to push the limits. Every year, YouTube fills up with clips of backyard fireworks shows gone wrong. Nothing says patriotism like accidentally setting your neighbor's lawn on fire. But the obsession goes beyond July 4th. Fireworks pop up at New Year's, sports victories, random block parties, pretty much any excuse. For a country that debates budgets endlessly, America has no problem burning literal money in the sky for fun. Of course, fireworks also come with downsides. Injuries spike every summer, pets panic, and veterans with PTSD dread the holiday. Cities even have to budget for cleanup after the celebrations. Still, the tradition lives on because nothing screams America like blowing stuff up in the name of freedom. So yeah, fireworks are flashy, expensive, and a little reckless, which honestly sums up America pretty well. And if you think that's over the top, wait until you hear our next fact. America has more museums than Starbucks and McDonald's combined. There's 7. America has more museums than Starbucks and McDonald's combined. When you think of America, you probably think fast food and coffee. McDonald's and Starbucks are everywhere, right? But here's the twist. The US actually has more museums than Starbucks and McDonald's combined. Over 35,000 museums across the country. And they're not just big, fancy ones like the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. or the Met in New York. We're talking about every kind of museum you can imagine. There are museums for barbed wire, spam, the canned meat, not the emails, and even a mustard museum in Wisconsin. If something exists, chances are someone in America has turned it into a museum. It makes sense, though. America is obsessed with collecting, preserving, and, let's be honest, showing off. From art to history to random oddities, museums pop up everywhere. Small towns especially love them. Sometimes the museum is literally one room in someone's house, but hey, it still counts. The funny part is, most Americans don't realize just how many there are. We think of McDonald's as on every corner, but museums outnumber them by thousands. So if you ever get bored of fast food and lattes, you can always hit up the National Museum of Funeral History in Houston or the International UFO Museum in Roswell. Yes, those are real. So the next time someone says America is all burgers and capitalism, you can remind them it's also the land of random museums no one asked for. And speaking of size, our next fact is even bigger. It's about just how massive America really is compared to other countries. Number 6, the US is bigger than you think. Everyone knows America is a big country, but most people don't realize how big. The US is the 3rd largest country in the world by land area. Only Russia and Canada are bigger. But here's the kicker. America is almost the size of the entire continent of Europe. Yep, one country nearly equals a whole continent. To put it another way, if you drove from New York to Los Angeles, it would take around 40 hours without stopping. That's basically the same as driving across multiple countries in Europe. Americans don't just take road trips, they take odysseys. The size also explains the crazy diversity in landscapes and weather. You've got deserts in Arizona, swamps in Florida, tundra in Alaska, and tropical beaches in Hawaii. No wonder Americans argue about the weather so much. It's completely different depending on where you are. And it's not just land. The US has time zones galore. 6 main ones if you count Hawaii and Alaska. That means when someone in New York is waking up, someone in California is still asleep, and someone in Guam is already living in tomorrow. Coordinating anything nationwide is basically a logistical nightmare. The result? America feels less like one country and more like several countries stitched together with highways and Walmart, which honestly explains a lot about why people in different states feel like they live in totally different worlds. But size isn't the only thing that makes America unique. Our next fact is about food, and why Americans eat way more of it than anyone else. 5. America eats more pizza than Italy. If you thought pizza was Italy's crown jewel, think again. The United States eats more pizza than Italy, a lot more. In fact, Americans devour about 3 billion pizzas every year. That's roughly 100 acres of pizza a day. Yes, acres, as in farmland, but with melted cheese. How did this happen? Well, Italian immigrants brought pizza to the US in the late 1800s, but Americans took it and supersized it. Literally. Deep dish in Chicago, giant New York slices, stuffed crust from Pizza Hut. The US made pizza bigger, cheesier, and faster. It went from being a specialty food to a $45 billion industry. And Americans don't just eat pizza casually, they celebrate it. Super Bowl Sunday is basically a national pizza holiday. College students survive entire semesters on it. There are even frozen pizzas stacked so high in grocery stores that you wonder if they're preparing for the apocalypse. The irony? Ask an Italian, and they'll probably say American pizza isn't even real pizza. But Americans don't care, they've made it their own. Pineapple? Throw it on. Mac and cheese? Why not? Pizza in the US is less about tradition and more about innovation, or chaos, depending on how you see it. So, yeah, when it comes to pizza, Italy may have invented it, but America definitely consumes it. And that's not even the craziest food fact, because our next one proves Americans take portion sizes to a whole new level. Graph American portion sizes are huge. If you've ever eaten out in the US, you've probably noticed something. The plates look less like meals and more like challenges. American portion sizes are massive compared to most of the world. A medium soda in the US, it's the size of a large in Europe. Order a small popcorn at an American movie theater, and it's practically a bucket. It didn't start this way. Back in the 1950s, meals were much smaller. Burgers were half the size, sodas were tiny glass bottles. But over the decades, portions grew, and grew, and grew. Restaurants realized bigger servings made customers feel like they were getting more value, even if it wasn't healthy. Fast forward to today, and a single American entree can easily feed 2 or 3 people. The result? America has one of the highest obesity rates in the world. It's not just fast food either. Sit-down restaurants, diners, even casual chains pile plates high with fries, bread, and sides. And because most people don't want to waste food, they eat it all anyway. Or they take it home, where leftovers become an extra meal. To outsiders, it's shocking. Tourists often post photos of American meals like they've discovered a new species. But for Americans, it's just Tuesday dinner. So yes, portion sizes are huge, sometimes hilariously so. And they're a perfect example of America's bigger is better mindset. But food isn't the only thing America goes big on. Our next fact is about money. Specifically, the kind Americans spend chasing luck. There through three, Americans spend more on the lottery than on books, movies, and music combined. Here's a wild fact. Americans spend over $100 billion every year on lottery tickets. That's more than they spend on books, movie tickets, video games, and music combined. All for a 1 in millions chance of hitting the jackpot. It's easy to see why the lottery sells hope. For just a couple of bucks, you get to dream about quitting your job, buying a mansion, or telling your boss exactly where to stick it. Powerball jackpots often climb into the billions, and every time they do, gas stations get mobbed by people buying tickets like it's the end of the world. The funny part? Most winners don't even end up living happily ever after. Studies show that many lottery winners blow through their fortune, go bankrupt, or say the money made their lives worse. But that doesn't stop millions from trying. Hope is addictive. To put it in perspective, the average American household spends around $500 a year on lottery tickets. That might not sound huge, but think about it. That's more than many families spend on reading or going to the movies. Education loses, entertainment loses, but the dream of what if wins every time. So yeah, the lottery is basically America's national pastime of financial self-sabotage. It's not rational, but it's fun. And in a country built on chasing dreams, it makes sense people keep lining up. But if you think that's surprising, wait until you hear our next fact. It's not about money. It's about one of America's most famous symbols, and the story behind it isn't what most people think. Thus, too, the Statue of Liberty was originally a lighthouse. Most people see the Statue of Liberty as the symbol of freedom, immigration, and all things American dream. But here's the twist. When it was first unveiled in 1886, Lady Liberty wasn't just standing there looking majestic. She was supposed to function as a lighthouse. Yep! The statue had a torch designed to shine light out into New York Harbor, guiding ships safely into port. The idea was pretty poetic. Freedom literally lighting the way. The problem? It didn't work very well. The light wasn't bright enough, and the U.S. Lighthouse Board eventually said, "Thanks, but no thanks." By 1902, her lighthouse duties were shut down for good. But that's not the only surprising thing. The statue itself wasn't even American in origin. It was a gift from France designed by Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi and built with help from Gustave Eiffel, yes, the Eiffel Tower guy. At first, some Americans weren't even that excited about it. Congress dragged its feet on funding the pedestal. Imagine being handed one of the most iconic monuments in history and saying, do we really need it? Of course, today it's impossible to imagine the U.S. without the Statue of Liberty. She's become the ultimate symbol of hope and welcome, even if her original side hustle as a lighthouse was a flop. And now we've made it to the final fact, one that'll really mess with your head about how Americans measure, well, pretty much everything. 1, America still uses a system almost no one else does. Here's something the rest of the world never stops making fun of America for. The U.S. still uses the imperial system of measurement. Feet, inches, pounds, miles. All while most of the world uses the metric system. Want to confuse a European? Just tell them you're 5'11", weigh 180 pounds, and live 20 miles from work. They'll stare at you like you're speaking ancient Greek. It's not like America hasn't tried to switch. Back in the 1970s, there was even a push for metrication, but people hated it. Miles and pounds just felt too American. So the metric system got quietly dropped, and the US went back to its quirky ways. The result? Chaos. Science, medicine, and the military often use metric because it's more precise. But everyday life runs on feet and gallons. So you end up with weird hybrids. A soda bottle is measured in liters, but the gas you pump for your car is in gallons. Road trips are in miles, but car engine sizes are in liters. No wonder Americans can't do quick conversions. Half the time they're juggling both systems at once. And don't even ask about Fahrenheit. Americans insist on saying it's 90 degrees outside while the rest of the world thinks the country is literally on fire. So yeah, America is basically standing in the corner saying, we're different, deal with it. Which honestly sums up a lot about the country in general. And there you have it. 10 facts about America you probably didn't know. From billion-dollar fireworks shows to pizza obsessions, from museums about mustard to the fact that the Statue of Liberty had a failed side hustle as a lighthouse, America proves one thing: it's full of surprises. What stands out most is the contradictions. This is a country that claims freedom as its brand, but can't even agree on a measurement system. A country that spends more on lottery tickets than books, yet also builds more museums than fast food chains. A country where portion sizes are comically huge, but so is the military budget. It's weird, it's wild, and somehow it all still works. But that's the charm of America's quirks. It's not just the big headlines or the stereotypes, it's the little oddities that make the place memorable. These facts aren't just trivia, they're glimpses into what makes the US unique, confusing, and at times, hilariously over the top. So what do you think? Which of these facts surprised you the most? Did you already know some of them, or did one make you stop and say, wait, seriously? Drop your thoughts in the comments and feel free to throw in your own favorite Weird America fact. Because at the end of the day, love it or roast it, America is never boring. And that might be the most American fact of all.